Merritt regular council meeting, Tuesday, March 14th, 2023, underway. I would like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that we are gathered on the traditional and ancestral unceded territories of the Inkklapma and the Silk people. Late items, seeing none. Public input. Do we have any public input? Thank you very much. Adoption of minutes. Did everybody read their minutes? Anybody find any mistakes? Adoption of minutes? Come on. Wow. 2 weeks, 3 weeks in a row. Excellent. Recommendation that the minutes of the regular council meeting being held on February 28th, 2023 be adopted.
Second.
Councillor Etchart, Councillor Newman. All those in favor? Thank you. Public hearing? None. 6.0. Sorry. 6.1. General matters. Paul, you owe me a quarter or a loonie? Oh, I better check mine. Okay. Yeah. 6.1, Lee Woods. Mr. Woods to present to council. And when you come up there, Lee, I'll get you to push that little red button and I'll cue you in. That little button on your mic there.
Okay.
And the floor is yours, sir.
Well, I'd like to thank the mayor and the council for letting me approach you guys and talk about the food truck business I'm in. I find that the city of Merritt really has got nothing set in place for food trucks. You're kind of basic. Being the owner of Wood Smoking Barbecue while doing events in Merritt, running a business. Doing events in the park, I would like to see an upgrade in the hydro system, because some of the events that we go to are not requiring us to try and run our generator. And if you charge a permit for that, so be it. That's a business of doing a business. And in regards to parking of a food truck in your town limits, we're kind of limited to parking as a regular vehicle. And if we're running a business, it would be beneficial if we can park a day. If we have to buy a permit to address that problem, that would kind of alleviate the problem so that we can do a business as a day in that type of parking. It would entice a lot more trucks being in town, operating, and kind of expand so that the food truck industry does expand. There's also a very high demand for a food truck rally to come to town. And if you go to the Vancouver Food Truck Rally website, in the lower mainland, it's very heavily in Chilliwack, Abbotsford, Kelowna, Kamloops. We are just kind of not doing that right at the moment. And I would like to see something in place so that we can entice these food trucks to come to town, give them a weekend pass or just something so that we can have these food truck valley or events. Where am I here? And a place where we could actually announce that we can do the food truck, maybe at the Ball Diamonds, reserve the parking lot so we can have the parking lot for us, or somewhere, make a deal with Canadian Tire or somewhere that the city's on board, they are kind of on board, and kind of, even if like Gasoline Alley, we have some type of event where food trucks are lined up there. I don't know, but just somewhere that we can hold the rally, block off downtown, kind of make it an event, And the other thing that I would like to is to be able to have permission so that we'd be able to do proper signage so that the event would be promoted, and that like the Centennial saying there is a game here, but you can say like the farmers market advertise that they're there, just kind of a more advertising that we'd be allowed to do as a food truck owner. And just more in general of rules and regulations for food truck regarding decimals, for reading of generators, just so we have a better understanding, so that it's not on a person saying, well, your generator's too loud, and not giving us a decimal reading. So just more rules and regulations so that they're in place, and it would make us as food truck owners comply to those and make it a lot more livable for the city and for the people. And I'd like to thank you for allowing me to address you guys, and hopefully we can move forward and get something in place for the food truck industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lee. Don't go anywhere. So, Lee, you came in, we had quite a long discussion on certain things.
Yeah.
So I did some phoning around. I phoned because I know, like I told you, when we go down to Vancouver, we go down to West Georgia, first thing we do is hit the food trucks. It's one of the enjoyable things that we do. So I did call some of the food truck people that were down there on the decibel level. So the acceptable decibel level for Vancouver is 85 to 90 decibels. And that is a huge generator between a 4,000 and a 7,000 watt.
Yeah.
I don't know how big yours is, but one of the things that you did bring up was the fact that we do not have a decibel meter to gauge how loud the generator actually is.
Right.
And I told you that I felt that was a little unfair, so we probably will have to fix that and get an actual decibel meter, and then set the decibels for what that needs to be. So I think a 4,000 to 7,000 watt generator is the biggest one that most people carry around, and that is still, when it is fully running, it is only 68 decibels.
Yeah, I got a 10,000.
Okay, so we got a 10,000, so you're probably a little over. But anyways, we need to set a decibel reader, so we know what's going on there. We also, one of the concerns that Mr. Woods has was the fact that they have to have a business license for a whole year. We found out that was incorrect. We already have it incremented. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, letter 3, 6, 9, and 12?
Okay.
3, 6, and 12. So,
okay.
And we don't allow day permits. It just simply doesn't happen. Now, you're getting to the conversation of the food truck rally. There is a group that has approached us to do that in conjunction with another event. But that doesn't mean that, such as yourself, we could not start to work with you to see if that's what you would like to do. If you want to work with the city and council to get a food truck rally here, I think we'd be more than happy to try and help you with that and try and steer it, but you would have to be leading that. That would be your deal.
Okay.
And if you're willing to do that, I think we would be willing to do that as well. So I'll open up to council. Council, any questions? Councilor Egan.
I just want to know how many food trucks are in town at the moment?
There's me. Don't Panic have Bannock, but they do events. And I'm kind of questioning, I think there's one more, but I haven't really seen them around. Their food truck is parked in behind that snake oil type of place there. And it's sitting there, but I don't see them doing anything with it, so I'm not sure. So right now, I would say me, and Don't Panic, you got Bannock.
What happened to that Mexican one that was over behind?
He sold his business because of he had there was a lot of gray areas that were from the city that he couldn't get a square answer, or a real proper directive towards food trucks. It was always a gray area.
Okay, so I'm also wondering too, is there, you said there's no day permits for a food truck? And why is that?
I would have to hand that to Linda. I'm assuming we just have not got a bylaw for it.
We do have a bylaw that covers the regulations of food trucks, and within that bylaw it allows for 3 months, 6 months, and 12 months. As part of the application process, there is an application fee, there is the fee for the permit, and then there's also an inspection. So a day permit would require an inspection, just like a 3 month, 6 month, or 12 month license would also require the full inspection. We want to make sure that everything is safe for our residents.
And just to add as well, so if there are people coming in from outside where they're not a local food truck, where they would need to be inspected by others, we have worked historically to allow food trucks to come in under the banner of another organization or another business under their business license.
Such as rodeo?
Could be the rodeo. I think the chamber's done it before. And so we've done that so long as they have the right certifications, and we put that on the host organization, say, do they have this, this, and this, to demonstrate that they've gone through the right safety procedures to actually operate that food truck. So there are ways that the day use can be accomplished. We just don't sell that as a permit because of our obligations for inspection.
So some food truck from out of town could come in under the auspices of another business or organization.
Yeah,
and then their inspection, the city would receive. If they've been certified by another community?
We require the one that's putting the event on to ensure that any food trucks showing up demonstrate that they've received that. So we don't get directly
involved.
involved.
So say from Interior Health or something like that?
Yeah, it's IH. There's a gas fitter one from Technical Safety BC as well. I think that those are the two different inspections that are required. So yes, it is possible to come in from outside, but we just aren't. If somebody is coming from outside and is regularly setting up camp here, not as part of an event, we would knock their shoulder and say, hey, you need to get a business license to be able to do this. But the one day can come in under the banner.
Thank you.
Just to address his point, I've been in major events. I've been in the Rock and River Fest. I've been in the Base Coast. I have been in Peachland Festival. We have to prove fire. We have to prove our health inspection. The health inspector does come and re-inspect us at every event. So there is a stringency already in place. It's just that to get the city on board for this is the kind of the moving forward of allowing these weekend permits. Every food truck that is out there right now, they expect when they go to an event, they expect to have to be proof of fire. They have to be proof of their insurance liability. They have to be improved on their health inspection. And the health inspector comes in and he goes and checks the temperature of water, checks everything. Refrigeration, make sure it's all properly cooled, because moving from point A to point B, we don't know what's going to happen with our refrigeration system. We do not know what's going to happen with our gas system. So there is that. We have to.
Okay, I have another question. What would a food truck rally look like?
If you go to the Vancouver food truck rally, you would have, they allow an entry of 20 food trucks, all different types of cuisine. And so down in Lower Mainland, they're doing a food truck rally with like a food truck war. So you as a person would actually go and attend that food truck rally. You would eat at so-and-so, you would try some food from so-and-so, you try some food from so-and-so. And the one that got the most votes during that weekend would win that food truck war.
Like they have on TV?
Just like they have on TV.
Okay, and then if you had one here, do you have a specific location in mind?
Well, that is it. That's where, the Ball Diamonds would be a good place because it's a good big parking lot. I'm really open. Like if we want to attract a business downtown, could we block off the downtown street and then have food truck on both sides of the street? That's another option. It's kind of open to what we can do. Like Canadian Tire, their parking lot, could we do something up there to attract them around there? It's really, really open to where we can hold it.
Okay, and then I guess my other question has to do with your parking downtown. You're parking on where normal people regularly park.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if the businesses that you park in front of are having any objections at this point.
Well, you guys are, in the city of Merritt has got that farmer's market where you're blocking off the whole downtown already. So you're blocking off actually 2 streets on Coldwater side and the major downtown. And you're bringing in vendors from out of town already for those.
I'm just talking about on a regular basis. If you have a 3, 6, or 1 year license, does that give you the right to park wherever you want right now?
Right, anywhere where it's a business parking. So if I'm downtown, it's business parking. I just can't park on any residential. I have to park legally.
I know. So I've seen you parked in front of Community Futures before.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you've talked to Community Futures or say the businesses around that area that normally their customers would be parking there.
It was on the discretion of what I was told from the bylaw officer. So they have actually given me zones where I could actually park my food truck.
Okay.
CEO Smith.
If council were to direct some amendments to this bylaw, that would probably be one of the areas that gets revisited. So the default regulation right now is that you can park in front of any commercially zoned parcel for up to 3 hours. Up to 3 hours.
3.5 actually.
3 hours.
It's a half an hour setup, half an hour breakdown.
Our bylaw says that no more than a 3-hour period in any one location.
Yeah.
And it must be commercially zoned.
Yeah, we don't have to stop
Yeah.
that, Jeff, I can promise. It's not, but I think that where there's never really been any complaints when it's an event-based thing, bringing in food trucks. For those, there hasn't been any concerns. There have been times with food trucks previously where there has been concerns raised from food-related businesses where a food truck will come and park. It's particularly if food trucks are up at the Wolfway, we hear about it very quickly. That comes up that one's come up. And it has happened downtown as well, where there is that concern. And so I think that working with the business community to identify maybe particular areas or locations would probably be a sensible approach, because we want everybody to be on board. We want to have good places for food trucks because we recognize the value that adds, and we also don't want to pick off our restaurateurs. So.
My question wasn't really about events in particular.
Yeah.
It was more about on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, on the ongoing basis stuff.
Yeah.
There are people that are frustrated. That's.
Thank you.
Councillor Charney.
Have you ever thought of piggybacking on to other events for this food rally, say Bass Coast, the long weekend, things like that, so that you're doing
Well, the
a lot of people coming
problem
in?
with Base Coast is that you got so many food trucks already up there.
Okay.
You've got probably a good 15 food trucks that are up there. And we're paying high dollar to get in there to do well over $50,000 for that weekend.
But a different location if you were downtown
Well,
versus in the
being with
event?
Base Coast, the problem is everything is isolated. Everybody's paid. You have to pay to get in there. You have to pay to stay up there. So you are not allowed to leave the grounds. So that's
Long weekend, is that something that's possible? Long weekend?
But it's kind of an open thing, like Rock and River Fest. Donna can swear when they had Merritt Mountain Music Festival, there was a street mall downtown. That attracted a lot of people because a lot of people came off the grounds to do the downtown. They would go to the restaurants downtown. Now it's kind of trying to isolate the people so that they're staying up there. And we don't have that downtown market anymore during the Rock and River Fest because they isolated things. So it's more on trying to get the city of Merritt to make it inviting and working with the people, but they're more on trying to keep the money up there because the more I take in, the more money they get.
But a baseball tournament, I see thousands of people at a
Right.
baseball tournament. That would be a perfect opportunity. So you're piggybacking on events.
Perfect, yes. That would be well accepted.
Okay.
Councilor Rescher?
I think I was after then.
Councilor
Okay. I think your presentation is interesting. I do know other people that have worked at Base Coast, and I think if you're a staff, you are allowed to leave the grounds. You may have to leave your truck there. So I would want to check on that. But I think that we have to be careful of what we approve, because the whole idea of the business license is then we have some control of knowing what businesses come into town, and also we want to be fair to the other businesses that, pay taxes in the community and things as well. So we don't want to be making anyone angry. And but it's something that we have to be careful with and make sure that we are fair to everyone. But I like Councillor Trunny's idea of attaching to other events, because I think it would be nice if there was something going on like a ball tournament, and then you organize 3 or 4 that could be there. Maybe we could look at something like that. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Councilor Olin.
So Mr. Woods and I met a few years ago when he was developing his business idea. Before COVID, it was glad to see your business running the way how we discussed it at that time. At that time, I also did a research in the communities around Merritt to understand more about the food truck industry. So there was different business models that they had. Just without mentioning the cities, there are some cities that have designated areas for food trucks. So they cover downtown, North Shore, and the other area, right? So there are other areas that they have partnered with the different businesses to provide more flexibility to the food trucks. So I think that that can be reviewed. I think that I don't know right now what are our bylaws regarding those zoning specifically, but that's something that we can review. So I want to address also your other point about the food truck rally. I feel like the city council, mayor, and council, it's always open to new initiatives. And what we need to you need to have a business plan. We need to have something that can be tangible, that can be presented, that you will be taking the lead. And I personally am happy to provide that assistance to develop that business plan if needed. And that is, you also talk about proper signage. That's something that needs to be included as part of the business plan. Finally, I just want to say that throughout the last week, I attended a conference where other communities attended, Logan Lake community, as well as Ashcroft and Lytton. So they mentioned that they say thank you so much for the support that you provided for these people during the flooding. So I just want to pass that to you.
Thank you.
Councilor Newman.
2 questions. One of staff. What was the last time that the food truck bylaw was updated?
2019 or 2009, sorry.
2009. Okay, so I would think at the very most it would probably be council's diligence to review that at possibly the policy committee level first, once that gets established, or even beforehand if it's a time is of the essence. I do know, coming from Logan Lake, we recently went through the food truck bylaw update, and it is a process, especially when you consider the businesses that are already here, but it's not, I don't think you're here looking for ideas on how to run your business, just to help you get the bylaws in place so that you can run it effectively. Personally, I just wanted to know the date on that, and we can go from there on bylaw review for you.
Councilor Petrosi.
Hi, Lee. Have you approached some of the big box stores like No Frills, Canadian Tire?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. And
I approached him last year, but he was in the startup year, and he told me to approach him this year, and I've talked to him about it, and he's really open to that. And Walmart was actually open to that. Kind of a catch to get people to come to the store more.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Lee, thank you for bringing this forward. Thank you for meeting with me and bringing this forward. And as Councillor Newman says, we do have a process to look at situations. And, you know, it hasn't been updated since 2009, but for a long time, we had no food trucks in this town. It was just that simple. So, you know, just seeing the popularity down on the coast, all the way down through Chilliwack on the way out when you're traveling, it is slowly moving this way. So, we will continue to work with you because you are the tip of the spear, so to speak, because you're in this business. So, yes, I appreciate you coming and pointing out, and looking forward to working with you to get this taken care of. So thank you very much.
Okay.
Right. Unfinished business, 7.1, extraordinary grant and aid, Nicola Valley Community Arts Council. Norm is not here, so I would hand that over to the CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is coming off of the presentation that was made to you last week. It is a joint application. Nicola Valley Community Arts Council is the lead on this, but they do kind of acknowledge that there's a lot of other organizations that are involved in setting this spring concert up. The request is for $663.23 from in-kind aid, and the remnants that you did not use during the grant and aid process were transferred to council contingency, which is why we're proposing that that is the source of the funds. It's in the report. I don't have it up right now. I think there was a few $1,000s left in there. So with that, I'll turn it over to you if there's any questions.
Thank you. So let's get the motion on the floor. We have a recommendation. The council approves the extraordinary grant and aid request for the Nicola Valley Arts Community Council for $663.23 for in-kind aid from the council contingency fund. Can I have a seconder or mover? Councillor Newman, Councillor Etchart? Sure, we're good. Questions, Councillor Newman? No questions. Anybody have any questions, concerns? I mean, the Christmas one was a huge hit. I think the community needed it, and I don't think there's any opposition to this, so I'm just going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. That was easy. 8.1. City of Merritt Cemetery Amendment Bylaw 2350-2023. Ms. Brick, you're up.
Thank you, Your Worship. The proposed bylaw is a minor amendment to the City of Merritt Cemetery bylaw, specifically to the criteria for engraving the columbarium niche doors. The columbarium was purchased by the city in 2019, and the cemetery bylaw was amended in 2021 to update the niche door engraving standards. The standards that are in the bylaw, they provide flexibility of design while maintaining an overall consistent appearance for the columbarium. The first occupant is in the process of being interred, and their family member has a background in graphic design and requested that council consider an amendment to the design regulations to increase the free border space around the edge of each niche door from 1/2 inch to a full inch. This will provide a defined separation to each niche door while maintaining the overall aesthetics of the facade. As this is the first door that has been distributed for engraving, staff have brought the request forward for council consideration, as there is time to make this change before other doors are distributed. A total of 10 niches have been sold. The door is distributed only when the occupant is ready to be interred, and the design pamphlet is distributed at that time, which outlines the city guidelines to the monument makers. The original cemetery master plan had the columbarium in a different location with a plan to relocate it in phase 2 of the cemetery development. Staff have determined that it's more cost effective to leave it where it is. So at this point in time, there's not a plan to move it. So there are people that are interested in starting to move in at this point. So if it's council desire to update the design at this time, this would be the best time to make that change. And I will turn it back over to you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brick. So let's move the first recommendation that council give first reading to the City of Merritt Cemetery Amendment Bylaw 2350-2023. Do I have a mover? Charney, Councillor Charney, Councillor Egan. Questions? Come on, Councillor, take a
So
lot.
I just want to make sure that I get this right. So you mentioned that a total of 10 niches have been sold in this for this space, correct? So, and I guess this is, we will be hearing, requests from people once they purchase, when they need to use them. So my question is, for these 10 people that have already purchased, have we or the city has notified them to let them know that a potential amendment can happen, so that I just don't want to affect, the way how they purchase, or with these changes now that it can be happen.
At this point, we haven't phoned those people yet. We wanted to make sure that council is on board with this change before we proactively start letting people know. Everyone who had purchased a niche was aware that there was a possibility that it would be moved at one point, which is why nobody has really moved in up until this point. With it not being moved, people are now looking to inter their relatives. The design is quite flexible on the niche doors, so there is the ability to put in pictures, like small images, scripted words. There's not a lot of structure around it. There's no borders that are required, so the design is quite flexible to allow some personality to be included with each design.
So I personally feel comfortable with the amendment as long as we do not affect the people that have purchased that space.
I met with a lady today that has bought 3 of these, and we talked about this exact thing. And she kind of laid out what 1 inch and ½ inch looks like. The 1 inch is much more, it looks better because there's not so much room left over. And she's a graphic designer, and she plans on doing some graphic designs for her relatives that are about to be interned. She has no concerns. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Brick, if somebody decided they wanted to stay with a ½ inch, this does not force them to go to the 1 inch. They can we move back and forth on this, or if we go 1 inch, we're staying 1 inch, or just how does that go?
It would say 1 inch, so from the edge of the border, so if we can just bring it up. I don't know if we can get in close. It's a granite slab. It's a black granite slab.
I saw it today, yes.
There's no definition really, so it looks like one big solid wall.
Yep.
And there is little bronze markers in the corners that are what lock it into place. So the 1 inch on either side would just give it almost a 2 inch buffer between the wording in each plaque. So it just kind of frames it very nicely. I guess I'm not a graphic designer, but I could see when she had presented it that it would kind of all run together this way. It just keeps it a little bit more. You can have quite a lot of the example that I had provided. It was a 12-letter name, so you can have a long name and still have the 1 inch in there on each end.
It is when we talked about it today and she showed me the designs, it's a much pleasing, and it seems to center things much nicer without a lot of wasted space or white space, if you want to call it. So, so we have any other questions? So we have a motion. Oh, Councillor Newman.
Sorry, just another question of staff in regards to the columbarium. Obviously, we are a quarter of the way full already. So my concern is, was there discussion of being, and I wasn't obviously here for the previous discussions, but is this something that can be added on to if we wanted to? I'm just wondering for the future.
We are able, in the smaller, or the top one, the top 30, you can have 2 people in each.
Okay.
In the bottom 10, you can have 3 people entered in each one. So those are the larger niches on the bottom. I don't think that this particular columbarium you can add on to. It would, my understanding is that you would need to purchase another columbarium that could be located in the original spot where it was visioned to have this columbarium.
Oh, perfect, thank you.
CEO Smith.
Thank you. One point to add on as well. So I think it's important to know a bit of the history in relation to this columbarium. The city had a master plan for its cemetery done up. There was a bit of a pressing need from one, or I shouldn't say from one, from some individuals that wanted to see this up a little bit sooner, and so there was a decision to move forward with putting it in its current location. The master plan has the columbarium garden in another location. We are currently reviewing that right now because that other location requires a pretty hefty retaining wall, and retaining walls are really expensive. And so we're kind of working, especially right now, we're working with a local company to potentially respec that to see if we might be able to do it at lower cost. Otherwise, we might end up taking this area here and we'll create a new master plan for a columbarium garden that would be kind of in this area. So we're looking at a few different options. It's probably going to come to you as part of the budget process because we're getting quotes on that right now. But the idea here is that whether or not we set up the other one as the columbarium garden or we move it to this area, we're going to have a hard time moving this unit. And so I think that we might be a bit stuck, and I think that we're probably going to lean towards amending that plan to how can we beautify this particular area and get a layout that's going to work for more columbarium, so that when we hit those thresholds, we can just pull the trigger on purchasing another set. In general, the goal with all of these is to have cost recovery. So we're not trying to make any money on it, but whatever the unit costs, we're going to divide that out by the number of niches, and we're going to make sure that it's fully covered, plus a little bit for the care and maintenance of the cemetery itself. So it's not too difficult to pull the trigger once we actually have a master plan to back up and support that.
Thank you. Any other questions? On the record, oh, Councillor Chai?
Where is the columbarium located with regards to everything else in the cemetery? I couldn't figure that one out.
It's right at the top. You can't miss it.
Way at the top?
No, where the road is, the access.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so there is access
Of
to the, okay. Okay, great.
Any other questions? On the motion on the floor, all those in favor? Opposed? Moving number 2, recommendation. Need a mover? Councillor Hogan, Councillor Etchart. Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Move recommendation number 3. Councillor Charney, Councillor Etchart. Any questions? All those in favor? Done. Thank you very much. Thank you much for all the information. Appreciate that. 8.2, fees and charges, amending bylaw number 2349-2023. Ms. Brick, you are back up again.
Thank you. You can hear from me quite a bit tonight. The proposed bylaw would amend only Schedule E of the fees and charges bylaw. And staff anticipate that a comprehensive review of all fees and charges will be conducted at a later date. So this bylaw amendment is only for Schedule E. The need for this amendment arose as staff started preparing materials for the reinstatement of the Board of Variance and discovered that there was an overlap of the application fee in 2 separate bylaws at 2 different rates. Upon review, it was determined this overlap would have caused confusion for property owners who were submitting a package for consideration by the Board of Variance, as they would not know which fee to pay as part of their application. And upon a review, it was determined that the application fee in the Land Use Amendment and Development Approval Procedures bylaw was the most accurately reflected the cost of facilitating a Board of Variance application and meeting. This schedule was, as the schedule was being reviewed, it was noted by the Finance and Planning Departments that an update to some of the other fees in the schedule would be appropriate as they no longer reflected the actual costs. A comprehensive schedule of these changes is included in the report to outline what changes have been proposed. I can go through just a few of the highlights, or if you'd like, I can go into detail and review each of them. If I was doing just a few, I would say that the tax demand notice, the duplicate tax notice, the provision of tax information for the mortgage company, these fees have been increased from, I think it was from $15 up to $39, because that actually reflects what the city is charged by a third-party provider for this information. The mortgage company tax refund, the property search and confirmation, also known as a comfort letter, and the building and information requests, they have been adjusted to reflect the actual staff time that's required to do the research, compile, and review each request. So those are the main ones that have been changed to reflect the actual costs that the city would be incurred to provide these services for residents.
Thank you very much, appreciate that. So the recommendation that we have is that council read fees and charges amending bylaw number 2349-2023 for a first time. Can I get a mover on that? Councilor Egan, Councilor Petrosi. Questions from council? The report's pretty self-explanatory. Councilor Hogan.
So this is how I feel. Sometimes we try not to adjust prices for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and suddenly we have to make the adjustment because we have not done it properly. So I don't know if there is a policy to review these prices on an annual basis or not. So I just feel like increasing over 100% in some of those fees, even though the fee itself is not that big, it may have an impact for some people. So I just want to know the rationale behind that.
So,
Smith.
To speak to the first question, I can confirm that it is on the docket for this year. We want to do full fee review for every single charge in the city. Where we are struggling right now is there are fees, and it's actually what caused this one, buried in all kinds of different bylaws. And best practice now, and it's adopted by the larger centers, is if there's a fee that you're charging for something, it lands in one bylaw. And so it will have every fee that could ever be charged in your municipality in a single bylaw. And so we've got, it's not a small project, it's a pretty big project that's going to very likely review, it's going to take a lot of staff time, probably a third-party consultant as well to do rate review and determinations on these, as well as council's time to amend all of these different bylaws, remove rates, consolidate them into the single bylaw. And then the goal here is that you're going to update that at least every 5 years, but potentially every 3 if there's been a large market change. And that's just going to be part of the city's operational plan moving forward, so that it's not piecemeal and you find out, wait a second, where did this fee come from? We don't have to deal with this one very often. And so I wholly acknowledge that large jumps in fees is bad practice. In this particular instance, where largely we're flowing through the cost that it's not like this is a city charge, like you were saying with the tax demand notice or other things. It's what it costs us to do it. So if we don't raise those fees, we're in a position where taxpayers are subsidizing a development process because we're paying $39 to do something that we're only charging $15 to do, which it doesn't make sense. So is it good practice that we would have sudden jumps in that? No, it's horrible practice, which is exactly why we want to do a full fee review and import all of that into a single bylaw, because it is a heck of a nightmare to work with right now. And we're going to need to be pulling in stuff from the 1980s in some of these ancient bylaws. So it's not a small project. I will say that it's not lost on us that this should already be done. This is something that we had slated for year end of 2022, but needed a finance department to lead the project, and just the realities of life step in. So I'm hopeful that this will be one of those items that we'll be able to work jointly with a consultant on in 2023 to nail this down.
It's another dollar. So, just so we understand now, CEO Smith, when was the last time we had a Board of Variance active?
That's a loaded question.
That's a very loaded question.
And that's probably why we see a rise in the fees, because this is us bringing forward our committees, and this is one that has traditionally never been filled
Sorry, Your Worship, for the Board of Variance, the fee was actually updated in the last reiteration of the land use and development permit bylaw, and it was set for a 4-year schedule to go up incrementally in there. When that was done, it was not removed from this fees and charges bylaw as it should have been. So that's where the overlap has occurred. And so once we determined that, we're like, okay, well, this is the most current fee that we should have had. This is the inaccurate one that should have been removed.
And it's because we triggered the committees to a certain degree. Councillor China.
One thing that I see is the zoning bylaw text and maps. You've halved the price on that one. That seems unusual.
We brought that in line with, because there is a photocopying fee of 50 cents per page for all of our bylaws. That I wasn't here, so I don't quite understand why $1 per page was being charged for a zoning bylaw or for an OCP bylaw, because it should have fallen in under the photocopying fees for the rest of the bylaw. So we've actually reduced that rate by 50% to bring it in line. The other bonus is if you look at the, let me pull it up here. So in the conversion of previously occupied buildings into strata title units, there was a $500 fee, which is also consistent with the $500 fee that is in the land use and development bylaw. And then there's a $1,000 fee. We've actually taken the $1,000 fee out because it should be in with the strata title conversions, and the planning department said, no, we don't actually need to charge that. So we've removed that $1,000 fee. It's just the standard fee that is already adopted in our other bylaw. So that's another example of where there was an overlap that we've just cleaned up in this.
CEO Smith.
Yeah, I just want to say, please don't shoot us when we do bring this other one forward. There's lots that needs to be cleaned up on this. We know it, you know it. I'm very excited to bring it forward, but don't kill us when you see how bad some of this is, how old some of it is, how much duplication we have. It'll be a great project. We're very excited. Well, nobody's excited about it. Who am I fooling? It's a fees bylaw, but it will be useful for the public to straighten this all out once and for all. So,
thank you. Ms. Brick, I'll get you to push your button there. Any other questions? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None. Second on number 2, same recommendation. I need a mover. Councillor Charney, Councillor Egan, sorry. Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Third reading. Councillor Egan, Councillor Petrosi, any questions? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None. Thank you. Thank you for the explanation there, Ms. Brick. Appreciate it. And we'll move on to 9.1, 2023 Search and Rescue Lease Renewal, to be introduced by Ms. Brick. You're up again.
Like I said, you're going to get tired of me tonight. Thank you, Worship. This report is for renewal of the lease with the Nicola Valley Search and Rescue for the lower half of the airport building and the adjacent fenced parking lot. The renewal of the existing lease will secure the meeting and storage space for the Nicola Valley Search and Rescue for a further 3-year term. The basement meeting room space has low commercial value due to its location and layout. However, it does have value to the SAR due to its ability to be used as a base of operations during an activation. And if they need the additional space upstairs during a really large operation, then they can ask the city if they have access to the upstairs meeting space to be able to expand. And then they also have storage facilities and regular meeting space. Staff have advised that there are no alternative city-owned locations identified as being suitable for SAR, and if SAR were not located at this site, they would be required to search for a new location, possibly at market rate. At this time, Council may opt either to pass the proposed resolution, which would direct staff to provide notice of the intention to dispose of the land through a lease, and staff would then bring the resolution back to Council after notice has been given for authorization to enter into the lease, or Council could direct staff to renegotiate one or more terms of the agreement, or direct staff to terminate the agreement and receive the report for information only.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Your Worship.
So after that, let's get the recommendation on the floor that the corporate officer be directed to provide public notice of a proposed below market value lease to the Nicola Valley Search and Rescue for a portion of the airport terminal building and grounds in accordance with section 24 and 26 of the community charter. Councillor Petrosi, Councillor Egan, any questions? I think we were all, Councillor Newman.
I just had a question if there was any provisions in the contract from the previous year, or from the previous contract that was signed. Well, any changes in the contract?
Oh, no, there's no changes to the lease. The lease is exactly as it was signed last time.
Excellent. That was just my question. Thank you.
Yeah, I think most of us went up to the celebration and got to see how it works. Great group. Councillor Hogan.
So, question to the staff. I know that SAR is a non-for-profit organization. Have you seen the financials for this organization? Financial statements?
Worship, so as part of the lease, they are to provide the city with a copy of their annual report. Within 30 days of the lease's year-end period, I can certainly search the records and provide that to council if you would like.
Yeah. In the future, I think it's needed, in advance so that we can make the decision. So I do understand that SARS does not charge for providing those services. That's one of the philosophies that they have. I also understand that there is no other parties interested in this space. And I do understand the benefits of this organization that brings to our community. But again, so I would like to see the financials. I don't have any problem with the contract right now.
No problem. Councillor Egan.
When we went up to the SARS open house, they had mentioned and pointed out that their storage facilities weren't standard at all. In fact, one of them in the back was quite decrepit. So I'm just wondering if they'll be asking us for money to replace that?
That would be up to them. Haven't heard anything yet.
No? Okay.
Councillor Charney?
I personally think this is a valuable organization, and I have no problems whatsoever with renewing their lease for the $1 in the basement.
With that, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. 10-0. Notices of motion. I'll look real quick and move on. Reports from council. I'll be real quick. Did the community yard sale, which was awesome. It was really well attended this year. There's a lot of cool stuff in there. I went to the Diamond Vale Trailer Park on the 8th when people were moving in, and I got suckered to help a gentleman move in for a little while, which was fine. I thought it was okay. He was very excited to be in there, and I've met quite a few others at the pool that I work out with. They're very happy to be in there, so they're extremely, extremely happy. I went up to NVIT and met with Ken Trend and John Chenoweth. What I did is I met with them to discuss Mary Agnes's sign that she wanted to put on our door. I just wanted to make sure that they were okay with council and the city putting that up, just out of respect for their decision. I enjoyed Mary's deal, and you'll see they're on our doors now. So they gave us their blessing to put them on the door. So they're now on our doors, so I'm very happy to see them there. So I don't know if you noticed it tonight when you came in, but they're there, so you can see them. And that's all I have. Councillor Charney.
We're fighting over who's going first.
You know what? I push the button, and whoever goes solid is it.
I attended the LGLA, and it was a fantastic learning experience. The 4 councillors that went, new councillors, we learned a lot of information. I'm not as computer savvy as Councillor Egan, so I had to rely on my notes that I took for my report and tried to do the best I could on that. I would recommend that to anyone to go, even returning councillors. I think it's excellent information. I then took that course they suggested at the conference, the learning ubcm.ca, and it goes through the key foundational principles of code of conduct, integrity, accountability, respect, leadership, and collaboration. And when you take that small 45-minute course, you really have to think which one of these categories, because they overlap in a lot of things. So you really had to think on that. That's a very good course. And I do have the code if you want to take that course. I have the code here. I would recommend that everyone take that. I attended the Senior Society monthly meeting and their luncheon. We had a presentation from Marlene Jones on SEPTED, and it was well done. The seniors appreciated that. The one thing that was brought up was the breezeway from the corner of Mandolins and Sabon down to Gillis House and the seniors in the museum. There are a lot of people sitting there, standing there. Use of alcohol and drugs is quite prevalent. So there was a report done by the OCP, December 2019. So I got the report, I went down there and I looked at all the recommendations from the report. Not one of them has been carried out. So I think maybe that's something that we as a council could look at. Quite a few people use that breezeway, and just one simple thing, one light, one camera might help in that area. Working with Gillis House maybe to cut their hedge so that there's a direct vision line. But there's concerns from the citizens about that area since now that we have decriminalization of drugs. I attended the Long-Term Service Awards. That was a lot of fun, enjoyed it, and it was glad to see we have some employees that have been here for 20 years. So let's hope we can encourage our employees to stay that long. And that's it.
Councillor Hogan, you're up.
I wanted to go first because I know that she was going to mention what I have to mention. So anyway, I was the other councillor, or one of the other councillors who attended the LGLA. It was great to understand how the other communities are dealing with similar situations, with similar issues, and what has worked and what has not worked. It was for newly elected as well as re-elected officials, so that was great. We have a presentation from UBCM Executive Director Gary Mysak. As a presentation, we have a keynote speaker from Strategic Steps the President. We have also codes in conduct and roles and responsibilities by the Mayor of Salmon Arm as well as the CAO. We have a presentation by BC Assessment, Municipal Finance Authority, Asset Management BC, and others. So that was great. So it was worth it. And the other event that I attended was the Community Garage Sale. So it was good. I saw a lot of stuff. So my wife is not happy that I keep buying stuff. So anyway, so all good.
That's what it's all about. Councillor Petrosi.
Okay, I'm going to piggyback off the last two, attending the Local Government Leadership Academy in Kelowna, and it was over 3 days. And I found it very informative, a lot of passionate people out there that are trying to do better for their communities. So meeting with other councillors and mayors from other communities. And some of the topics that were covered, roles and responsibilities of City Council, codes of conduct, as we've mentioned, local government law, dynamic decision-making, communications for elected officials, tourism, transportation, and probably another 10 items that were covered. So it was packed into just 3 days, not quite 3 days. So, and I went with Team Merritt. So, and March 8th, I also attended the Long Service Appreciation Dinner. So thank you very much for the dinner. It was very good. And yeah, great to see people that have been here for 20 years. March 11th, I attended the community yard sale, and I wasn't allowed to purchase anything. My wife said we've got enough. So, but it was good to actually get out to speak with the public and just get out and about. So thank you.
I think there should be a bylaw in there that says your wife has to allow you to buy one thing. I heard you were a big fan of the breakfast.
Yes.
I saw pictures.
They fed us well. So.
Councillor Egan, you're up.
I'm going to piggyback as well. I did do quite a summary, which I've emailed to everybody. And I just wanted to point out that the most pertinent topics that I thought were the codes of conduct, roles and responsibilities of municipal governments, and also our community strategic plan, which apparently we haven't done yet, but I was happy to read the emails today saying that we are planning to start planning our strategic plan. And what I was interested to note that it is a 5-year plan, not just 4, because we are actually in this year moving along with last council's strategic plan, which I, for some reason, haven't seen yet. Anyways, all in all, it was really, really interesting. I met a lot of people very interested in what Clinton is doing for their community development. That was just finalized when he was at the convention. I'm really not at liberty to discuss it at this point, but it's a very, very interesting and really, really good for their economy. Pardon me. I also went to the awards celebration for our staff, and that was really good. And I was really interested to see all the different people that were there. I didn't know some of these people. Now I do, supposedly. But I'm going to retract. And one of the other really, really beneficial things of this conference was learning when and where to speak. And I want to apologize for some of the comments I made at our last meeting, because I probably spoke out of turn, and whether or not it was the truth, I just apologize for bringing up during council. Thank you.
Thank you. No apology for passion. And I know that the dinner was special for you because you wore a dress to it, so we were pretty excited. Councillor Newman.
Okay, so my report is a little bit different. So on Tuesday night, I attended the Tourism Nicola Valley meeting, which was the first one that I was able to attend. Unfortunately, their meetings coincide with Tuesdays, so it's quite often that we will not have a representative there, but there was about 15 people there. They were thrilled to have a member of council there, which is always good. The Merritt Mountain Biking Association did a great presentation in regards to trails and how they're doing mapping there. So that was great. Jordan, who was the representative, he spoke. He maintains about 200 kilometers of single track trails with the club alone. So that was good to find out, which I wasn't aware of. That's a heck of a lot of responsibility for one club to take on. The Snowmobile Association was also present. They did another presentation in regards to mapping. They have got their new camera installed on the CCAN. I really encourage anybody to go onto the Snowmobile Association website and check out the views from their cameras. They're incredible. I really hope to see that somehow in the future we can get them all linked to our website, because the footage is incredible. I was blown away with how clear it is in the middle of the night and during the day. So pretty nice to see. The Coldwater Classic will be coming back to Merritt. It will be July 29th and 30th. So there will be trail running as well as the cross-country biking. It'll be Saturday the 29th. There's 10 kilometers and 26 kilometer routes. So mark your calendars for that if anybody's interested in it. $5 donation is included in the registration fee, and that goes to search and rescue. So kind of nice to see that they kind of go back to other organizations in our community. There was a brief discussion about the Walk of Stars that was brought up. Apparently 75 to 100 stars have not been installed yet. So that was kind of interesting as a newcomer to find out that they still have these in storage and they do plan on installing them. So that was good. The photo contest that was running, they had over 170 submissions, which shows a little bit of interest from all different members, young, old community groups and such. So that's a good start. And then the last thing that I had was their Moose Academy, which is apparently a training session which has 107 lessons over 15 courses. It opens up this week to the members of the Tourism Nicola Valley, so that's a step in the right direction. And then the service awards I did attend to, following up on everybody else. Congratulations to our staff members that have been with us between 5 and 20 years. I think the 20-year mark is incredible for any organization, and it's always nice to see. And then I did attend on March 10th a virtual workshop from Inclusion BC, which is a nonprofit provincial organization that advocates for the rights and opportunities of people with intellectual disabilities and their families. It's a community collaboration information session that is being put on to create a better network of services and supports for children and youth with support needs. They're putting out invitations to community members to co-design and have engagement that will inform communities how to better support them. And it's something that will be going community to community. That was the first of many, I believe, that will be coming. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? So just wanted to say I'm really proud of council for going to the LGLA, taking it seriously and bringing back reports, because that's part of the whole thing. And you guys did an amazing job, so keeping us informed. I was happy for the representation. So you guys are doing it right. And Councillor Egan, your report was very long and very full of information. So thank you very much. No, but I mean, it was nice to see that. That, like I've said, that's nice to see the return of the information when you represent your community like that. So I'm very proud of you guys. You did a great job. And apparently the breakfasts were fantastic. So
Can I say one more thing?
you sure can.
I was speaking to one of the SILGA organizers, and she said that for those of us who are going to SILGA, they're having a trivia quiz, and they want us to put a team in. So be thinking about that.
Good to go. Not bragging, but I was a Trivial Pursuit professional. No, I wasn't. I just wasn't good at it. Councillor Newman.
Sorry, I did have a question just on Councillor Charney's report. You said that there was a report about the Breezeway. I'm just wondering what the title of that report was, or who produced it, or...
Martin Jones September report. Rear footpath, 1700 Garcia Street, Railway Mall, December 2019. And so they've got quite a few recommendations at the back.
You might want to hit your microphone there, Councillor Charney.
Great.
People at home cannot hear your voice.
Sorry. So I looked at the recommendations, and 1, 2, 3, 4 of the ones that could have been done haven't been done. And I think that there is a concern that we should address that area. It is quite widely used, not just by citizens. It's now being used for consumption of alcohol and drugs, and it is dark. Some simple things could affect that. I know it does involve Gillis House, where their fence is quite high, and right now that vine thing doesn't have leaves on it, but it's still hard to see. Once the leaves come on, you enter that breezeway and you can't see the end of the breezeway, so you don't have a clear line of sight. And so that is a concern for a lot of people. It was a concern for me. I sped up when I went through there. I'm not going to loiter that way. But I think we should look at that and, if possible, make some changes.
Councillor Smith, CEO Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just to provide a bit of comment and update, so there are a number of different recommendations in that report, ranging from camera lighting, changing the little area where people sit down, fencing, and other things. And so I do want to let you guys know one of the initiatives that we did explore and actually got pretty deep down the path on was the camera solution. And if you haven't had the privilege of working with the OIPC, the Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner, lovely organization. It's really, really hard to put up a camera that is looking at public space. You need to run what's called a privacy impact assessment, which you have to justify the reasoning for why you are violating people's privacy rights in a public space, and it has to meet certain thresholds. And so we were working to gather crime statistics in particular from that area, because it looked initially like we were going to have the backing to put one up based on what kind of the anecdotal evidence was. And then we measured the crime we kind of had to put a notice on that, all right, we're measuring crime from this date to this date to measure what we have for incidents. And for whatever reason during that period, I don't know if everybody knew that we were on it, but it ran dry, and there wasn't anything that really happened in that area. But that is independent of the fact that there's still things that could be done around the lighting and other solutions. The staff team will probably know. I really just, I have a hard time with the amount of requirements with putting cameras up in public space, and I'd say that we've got to find any other solution to do it, because that is a really, really cumbersome process. Having cameras up in city buildings for security reasons or whatever the case is, different story. But if you're just having it generally, say, hovering over Spirit Square, which was another one that was discussed at the time, it's just a tough sale, and there's quite a few communities that have gone down in a burning ball of fire for trying it, and have gotten lovely slaps on the wrist. So yeah, one of those things.
Councillor Cherney.
You mentioned that the raised bricks, that people sit on them. Well, I looked at that and I could not figure out how to solve that solution, because the grass is up here and the sidewalk's down here, so you've got the slope. And no matter how many things I came up with, I could not, except with broken glass sticking up like the Mexicans so you can't sit down on it, I could not figure out how to solve that solution. But I don't know about crime before, and I don't know if there will be an increase of crime because of decriminalization, but it just seems like it's a little dodgy there sometimes. So that's just my concern. Lighting would be perfect. Like from the corner of the senior center, there is one light there. I don't know how strong it is, but if you had a bigger light there, but then are we going to have Gillis House residents complaining? So anyway, that was my.
What do I got next? I got 3 solid lights. I'll go with Councillor Egan.
My question would be, could we not approach the owners of the Rail Yard Mall to do something about it? I mean, as opposed to us having to try and deal with that.
It's not Rail Yard. That's public property from the corner of the mall, the breezeway. That pathway is city property.
Okay.
They do, the mall does have lights going through until you get to the end of the 2 buildings. There are lights on the side of Mandelins and Salem.
But could they not put a light inside the breezeway?
They do have them in the breezeway. It's after the breezeway. That's the problem.
Okay, well, maybe they could put another light in.
They could at the end and direct them that way,
yes.
Yeah.
It's just a suggestion.
They do have, which I didn't even know that existed, there is a walkway behind the mall there. I didn't even know that existed. There are lights there.
Councillor Richard.
My only suggestion would be that with the privacy issues, that maybe a motion sensor light, so that you don't have this constant light that's on disturbing residents in the Gillis House. But if you had something triggered by movement and people walking by, it would flash the light and probably lower the events that maybe people might want to hang around. They start moving, they start drinking, they might want to move on somewhere else. But it can be intimidating if a person wants to walk down that way at nighttime, and they might think twice about wanting to go there with low visibility. But maybe a motion sensor might be an idea for a safety light, because with it not being on all the time, then it wouldn't be a constant light in someone's eyes. That's all. Thanks.
Councillor Petrosi.
Yeah, I guess the doctor's office, dentist office, and a couple of the other businesses there. I hear about it from my wife just about every day when she takes the garbage out. She's concerned with what's going on back there. So I'm not sure if there's any feedback from the businesses that have been about issues going on back there, and whether they can maybe put up some type of, I don't know, lighting. Maybe they can speak to them.
I have to be honest, this is something we were talking about in 2015 and 2016. This has always been a concern and always will be a concern because it is a popular hangout. At some point in time, the museum removed a lot of the brush down on the corner where the trucks rolled in to fill up Save-On. They removed a lot of that because it was becoming a situation. So it's something that's been talked about before. Councillor Newman.
Is there a way that we could get a copy of the report and possibly at least maybe discuss it in the future once we've all had a chance to review it, and then maybe there's recommendations that we could bring forward to budget even, just as a consideration?
I'm sure I could get If you would like to, or we could get yeah, if Marlene could, she could just send it to all of us, actually. We could just make the recommendation, or ask her to send it to all of us so we can have a closer look. Oh, here we go.
I can request Marlene to provide that to me, and then we'll circulate
Excellent.
it to council.
CEO Smith.
I'm just gonna say, I don't know how big of an amount we need to make out of this. We can just put up a light on the corner of the building, and I can have that conversation with Public Works, and we can make that happen. It's a light. We're not gonna be breaking the bank by taking something on the corner of that building and putting a motion sensor light on it. So I think this one, is it gonna be like football stadium quality where, we don't have anybody there? I don't know, but we can probably make it better than what it is, and I can just have that conversation with our team operationally, I think. If this was a big area where we were going to have lots of lights up, I'd say, yeah, this is going to be a capital program, but this is probably a single light off the corner of the building, so.
Okay. Councilor Charney.
Could we try and work with Gillis House to maybe remove that hedge so that there is a clear sight line? Or, they're saying anything over 4 feet. So, I mean, if we could just bring the hedge down and remove the whole thing.
Take the wind, take the wind.
Take the wind, okay, I'll take the wind.
I can confirm that I will have a follow-up discussion with our staff team. I don't want to be prescriptive of what's going to happen here, but the light's easy. We'll figure out a way to get a light, and we can commit to having a discussion. I don't know where exactly that'll go. If that satisfies it, I'll have that and I'll report back to you guys at a future meeting.
Excellent. Moving on. Information items. Anybody have any questions about the information items in front of you? All pretty self-explanatory. Resolution tracker, everybody's had a look at that. And we have a CEO report, verbal from CEO Smith. Oh, hold on, Councilor Newman.
Sorry, just going back to the information items, I'm not sure that we don't want to bring forward the response from the 2022 UBCM resolution.
What would you like? It's already been passed, so I'm not sure what you're looking for.
Well, I'm just not sure that generally when things come back from UBCM, I would suspect that council would want to do something or not do something, but if not, that's fine.
So this has already gone through UBCM, been approved, and is moving forward. So again, what would you like to see?
Well, it's not necessarily that I want to see anything, but usually if we've gone to a minister or anybody, I just want to either send a letter of thanks for reviewing it, or if we're done with this is fine. I don't know, usually there's just further discussion, I would think, that comes back. But if everybody's fine with it the way it is, I'm also good with it.
To be 100% honest with you, all the resolutions we've ever pushed through, we've never sent a letter to them, because a lot of the times these get thrown into a block. So I don't know if anybody else, but I'm happy with it the way it is. I don't know if anybody else wants anything to be done. Okay, moving on. Yes. Oh, sorry. Oh, Councilor, Chair, my mistake.
I just want to add since it was brought up, I'll just comment that the application that they're talking about from the police is a form that a member has to sign off on and give permission to use. So I don't think we're going to see anybody using ATVs, because you need permission to be operating on any of the roads from the police. And in the past, you haven't seen too many of these permits issued because there's a lot of new members that come here that don't know a lot about ICBC and have to learn all about ICBC and their permits, and they're reluctant to give permission because they don't know the insurance ins and outs, and typically these permits are for business type uses like spraying weeds along the highway, and they're very specific. So it's not a great response. I'm just sharing with everybody because these permits aren't handed out very easily. So this isn't great news, actually. So just so you all know. Thanks.
CEO Smith, you're up.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. So We are going to approach a CAO report such that on the first council meeting of every month, you will have a written version. You don't this month because we're still refining exactly what that system and process is, but I have sent out the departmental reports to your emails directly. So this month I'm going to be providing an oral report, and then the second council meeting of the month, it'll be a more brief, anything that happened in between, we'll provide an update on, and then again, so it will just basically be rotating between written at this first council meeting of the month, and then the off weeks will just be an oral report. So want to let you guys know some of the fun and exciting things that are happening operationally in our organization right now. And we'll start with the news that is most hot off the press. Thank you for your support in relation to a $500,000 grant application to the Rural Economic Diversification and Infrastructure Program. That was a city application for $500,000 in funding to be able to basically run a full-blown regrading program up at the airport for a number of different city lots to improve the economic viability of those lots and allow for, on the south side of the parcel, it'll be airport-related lease uses that will make it much easier for development of hangars and other things, should there be any private parties that are interested. And then there are parcels on the north side that would be likely suitable for a service commercial use, something on the industrial spectrum, to be able to generate economic development in our community. Really thrilled with that grant announcement because it's 100% funded. So this is not coming from the taxpayers. Well, it is through provincial dollars, but it's not coming through property taxes from the city of Merritt in order to fund that program. So very grateful for the receipt of those funds, and that will be an initiative that we bring forward here shortly. For other news and on the advocacy front, I want to inform council a little bit as to where we're at on the request for 2 additional RCMP officers that would be funded by the province. We've had many discussions now with the province, with RCMP, and where we are at is the RCMP detachment locally has been invited to submit what's called an out-of-process application for receipt of those additional resources. The RCMP has been great to work with on this and very understanding of the city's reasons for it, which is primarily the fact that the dispatch requirements to the Coquihalla Highway are much more significant than what the provincial allotment for RCMP officers is capable of handling. And so really the city of Merritt has been subsidizing the provincial police force in the response calls to our highways, which generate more than half of the activity for the Merritt provincial policing area. So those arguments were well received. The data was tight on them, so I don't know how much room there even is to argue it. We had a meeting scheduled with the deputy minister for yesterday. Unfortunately, they did need to reschedule that, so we've now got another one down on the 23rd. So we're taking it through. It sounds like it's going to be advanced as a recommendation from the RCMP side. They're still reviewing the application, but early signs are good. As well, we'll take it from the provincial side and advocate there. I think that there is going to be, there was potential about not having those positions received immediately. It might be that one was immediate and one would happen a little bit later. We're still advocating that we would get both now because, again, City of Merritt is paying for it, and ultimately it's reducing our ability to meet our own policing objectives. And so we need to have the opportunity to provide policing that Merrittonians expect, and it's a service that we're paying for from the municipal side. So happy with how that initiative is progressing. Next up, I know you guys are going to be excited about this. The street sweeper is out on the streets. I had Rick say, give me picture and video evidence. We need to get it to Kim so that we can get this out on our communications page. Hopefully that means that winter's
done, but no guarantees on this. This is one thing that you are going to find is going to come up in budget. We're finding that contractor prices have increased by and large very significantly over and above the rate of inflation this past year. And so we are looking at and exploring options for how we can ramp up these services to provide them more cost effectively in-house, particularly where we already have the equipment to do so. We have a street sweeper unit. This is really just around having a body that is always able to, or more regularly able to fill that unit in addition to other responsibilities. And so we're likely going to pivot some of the models that you'll see at budget time. And this is one area where instead of saying, hey, we're going to bring in a contract street sweeper to come do the whole city and then we'll just do touch-ups after that, we might just talk about, all right, how are we going to fund a half-time seasonal role to come in and fill that function and do that at lower cost in circumstances where the numbers are just getting really tough to justify on a contract basis. So we're looking at models for continuous service delivery in circumstances where costs are rising. So expect to see that not just for snow clearing, but it may come up in the context of line painting and other things where we could have the ability to scale up in-house if we just change a bit of equipment or add something. So we are looking at that, and you'll have the opportunity to discuss that as part of the budget process. Speaking more to what we have on the public works side, I know that there's a few things that you guys are going to have lots of questions about. We do have tenders out for line painting currently. I think tenders were due at the beginning of March, so we're in the review process there. Mosquito control, the tenders were submitted and was due for the end of February, so we'll be bringing forward options for that. Vote Street, the road repair in relation to that water break. I know you guys have questions on this one. We did try, so you guys know, when this happened in 2022 to see if there was going to be any way that we could run an asphalt mix at that time. Unfortunately, the winter conditions and contractor supply issues made it so that wasn't possible. That being said, as soon as conditions allow and the mix is available, we're going to get that asphalt work done. It's a temporary fix. It's not the big Boat Street job, but we understand and are grateful for the patience that the public's had. As soon as we have that ability to complete that project, we're going to do it. Speaking to the broader Vote Street project, there is still our grant application that is now coming up on 12 months. So we anticipate that we'll be hearing back in relation to that project anytime now. I see Councillor Newman's face. It's not uncommon for the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program grants to have a one-year turnaround for these applications. We applied for funding through, we've actually done it through 2 different streams now, so hopefully we're going to find funding through that somehow. If we don't hear back fairly shortly, it's quite likely that what we're going to do is split the project in half, run the stretch that would lead up to Grimmett Street, potentially including the roundabout there, and advance that as one potential budget option for council. It might be made particularly easier because of the grant that was provided to all communities to support infrastructure. We don't know exactly the scope yet on how those funds can be used, but it sounds anecdotally like something like a project for Vote Street would be in. And given that was about $2.8 million, that could make a pretty big dent in making that happen. So no guarantees, still lots of different permutations as to how this could come out, whether it's a full project, a half project, how it's going to be funded, but we're eagerly looking forward to getting response on those grant applications so we know what to bring forward for the overall completion of the project that would include water, sewer, and the road components. We've got sidewalk inspection, asphalt overlay that is all being planned for right now, and we're doing that inspection work. We'll have the actual work on our sidewalk program start here this month. So anything that was identified in sidewalk inspections, we have a policy for how much a lip can be raised before we need to grind it down and do sidewalk work, and so we'll be commencing that here this month. We've got the laneway and shoulder grading project as well, which I think that we've heard from a lot of people in the public that post-flood and other things, that there's just drainage issues in various areas of the community, and when the re-shouldering's done, it doesn't seem to flow quite the same way as it used to. We're aware of those concerns and we're not minimizing them. As a project. It was a project before the flood, and it's a bigger project now. And so we did start some shoulder grading work on the public works side, as well as what we were doing with the flood mitigation program with the contractors there. And we're going to continue that to try and systematize creating shallow swales wherever possible to improve the drainage systems within areas that are particularly challenged. So lots of planning work happening to support that initiative. We also have a number of different projects that we're doing on engineering for planning right now, ranging from our annual dike inspection and maintenance that we need to complete. You're familiar with the airport fencing and taxiway paving project. We're in the awaiting funding process there. Armstrong Street design, we have detailed design and tender specifications have been complete, so it's ready to go, but we're waiting for Vote Street first in terms of priority. And so if we get funded on Vote Street, next application up on infrastructure is likely going to be Armstrong, to see if we can get partial funding to support that project given its size. Anytime we're talking multi-millions, it's really hard to just fund it outright from the municipal budget. We usually need some help from a grant in order to make the numbers work on those. So that's next up, shelf-ready project there. We've got a number of different other options and project updates in there, which I will allow you to focus on yourselves. And again, we'll have updates on these that come forward in April. The only one that I'll pull out is the DCC bylaw review, which we were scheduled to have our DCC bylaw completed by January, February of this year. We ran into some challenges with how we were pricing out and allocating the developer contributions to those projects. That's resolved now, but we need to go through and re-put all of those projects through our flow chart and then come up with our pricing before we go to the community consultation for that particular project. We do want to see this done before the lion's share of building permits hit for this season. So we're coming up against the gun, and it's kind of next one up for the Public Works Engineering and Development Services teams for finalizing that to get it ready for public consultation. So that's the long bit, and that was just Public Works. On the recreation side, we completed the condenser replacement. Really grateful for the $122,000 grant that we received for that, and the work is now done. It covers most of those project costs, so always grateful to receive that. We've got some new exercise equipment at the gym, arrival of a new recreation vehicle that was previously budgeted for. The total attendance year to date so far for the aquatic center is 5,323, and we'll give you monthly updates and some month over month, year over year comparisons with where we're tracking on that in future months. Working through a lot on budget process right now, and recreation and facilities is also assisting with the insurance claim programs. And so we have a number of different insurance claims for various city facilities in relation to the floods that are progressing nicely and are getting closer to their completion. And you'll be seeing some of that come forward as part of the budget program. Next, we will move on to fire. So the Fire Rescue Department in February completed 72 fire life and safety inspections. They also made presentations to childcare facilities, some cool pictures of work that was done in Central and Collettville elementary schools, the Close Before You Doze, Fire Fact Fun, and Wildfire Science for the various grades there. There was a media campaign on burn awareness and prevention. We presented at the school district Professional Development Day promoting fire safety and classroom education, and then regular social media. The one thing that I really want to flag for you guys that is a concern that we are seeing is in around the overall service calls, which are way up year to date versus 2022, 2021. And the primary driver to that so far is first responder calls for medical. So to give you an idea, in 2021, up through February, we only had 22 calls. In 2022, we had 19. Yet through February of 2023, we were up to 51 calls. So we're running at about 140% increase in first responder calls that our fire department is taking. This is and has continued to be a concern. We'll track it, and we'll bring in the fire chief here at a time to talk that through a little bit more as to what work potentially city council can do to support this in advocacy, because it started out as a support role, and it's really growing, and in part that's because it's a significant problem. I won't speculate on the reasons for that at this point. I think that we probably need a little bit more time and data to have a good idea as to some of the reasons, but it is not an insignificant volume of calls that has been generated there. So I will say of those 51 medical incidents, 11 of them were attributed to overdose or poisoning. So it's not all overdose. Some of them are just more medical calls, which is just maybe a change or a reallocation in how services are being delivered. So that's it on the fire side. Next, into the recovery team. Would really like to welcome Terry Hawes to the team. He came from the Lytton recovery team and was running their finance side, and so we've got something of a 1-2 punch as Sean has moved into a director of flood recovery and mitigation role. He'd kind of been wearing the finance hat, but needed some more finance crunching ability, and so grateful to have what Terry's bringing in, really organizing and nailing down the financial needs of that department. Great news, I just had an update earlier today that it sounds like we got approved on a huge batch of outstanding claims from the original response costs. So I think that there's only $400,000 left that has not yet been approved by the province. And to date, we're measuring it in the tens of thousands, the amount that hasn't been approved. I actually think right now it's sub 50,000, which is fantastic, because we were anticipating that the amount that we may not get back could be in the, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $800,000 range potentially. And so great work with the team, lots of back and forth discussion with the ministry to be able to nail down and make sure that we're getting them what they need to have the confidence in approving those claims. And so we're getting closer to being able to wrap up the response from 2021. That doesn't touch all of the things that are happening on recovery, DMAF, and other sides, but very happy on that because what we spent is coming back, and that's a win for the community. I think it's important right now, I want to frame a little bit on grants and where we're at with grants, because I know that the community keeps asking, all right, do we have funding? Do we not have funding? When are we going to build these things? Where things come from? So I just want to give a scope of what we actually have received and what we haven't yet received. So we received a $2 million grant for improving the dike in and around the public works yard area with an emphasis on protecting the wastewater treatment plant. The project construction window for that is likely going to be 2024. We are in final review for a green ARDM grant, which is a $5.7 million grant, primarily focused on again, diking for the basins area, as well as naturalizing some of the land in and around Pine Street that was most heavily devastated in this flood. And so we don't have any final information on that, but there's been lots of back and forth with our staff, lots of very detailed questions, which, hey, we always like that there's being serious consideration given. It's usually a pretty good sign. So the next phase of the DRR grant, so there's a second phase. We have now made an application on the strength of our flood mitigation plan for sectional diking in the Claybanks RV Park area. I should say as well, one of the challenges with this grant is it does need to be protecting public infrastructure, and so it's quite limited in where you can do this and where $2 million is going to make a difference independent of the rest of the system. So these are all advanced not by like staff choosing out of a hat. It's the recommendations of the engineers in order to meet the requirements of the grant itself. So we are in the process on that particular grant. We've also applied for $150,000 in for risk mapping activities on the Coldwater and Nicola. That would be more on the planning side. We've done a lot of work with trying to frame what is going to be our major application, the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund application to the federal government from our flood mitigation plan. The challenge is with that, it's a very long lead time to actually construct things, particularly where in some instances this dike would be running through private property, and so the city would have to have ample opportunity to have discussions and negotiations with those property owners. And so really we've split this out as two different programs, where, and I should say we've also split it out because the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund does not cover the costs of property acquisition to support this program. So we're working with the province to find avenues for potentially funding a property acquisition program that would ultimately lead into and support the construction of the infrastructure through the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund angle. I'm very confident and pleased with the work that staff's put in on that. We're leading the way in trying to develop what is quite innovative and robust policy in circumstances where, especially on the property buyout side, there isn't established policy at the provincial level. And so we're sort of developing it with them, and that's leading to, I think, a little bit more lengthy discussion, but we're really grateful for the support that we're receiving. Merritt, you've been on a number of the calls with the ministers as we've had those discussions trying to find a path forward there. No specific funding commitments, but we've got those programs well aligned and are advocating at both levels and have made submissions on the provincial side. The DMAF application with the federal side has not yet gone in. And we'll give you an update on those grants as they come. Of course, the other components that I know the public is asking about is primarily in relation to the bridge. I am a bit hesitant because we're still in review. We've advanced project design for the bridge, and that is, yeah, we need approval on what our design level is going to be. We think that we're in the right spot right now. Just needs time to go through that process. I will say it publicly here. I know the word is already out. This is not going to be a 2023 project, given the fish window that we have to construct this in. we're going to be looking to 2024 at this point. I know it's disappointing for all those who would like to regularly travel that bridge. We know that you're going out of your way to travel those few extra minutes to get to and from your home. We appreciate your patience. I'm really, again, confident that we've taken the right steps to get where we need to be. We're advocating to move through those processes as quickly as possible, and we're confident that it's well understood where we're at the provincial level now. So, if you want to shoot questions now, hop to it.
Okay, the only question I have at this point that I've been having to field is, okay, we understand about the bridge. What about Claybanks Park? And I said, well, that all is in relation, as far as I know, to the height of the bridge.
Claybanks RV Park will be coming on way before the bridge.
Okay.
And so you are correct. There's some connection, particularly around the diking, because the diking at Claybanks RV Park, as it stands right now, is considered temporary diking, not a permanent diking program. That very likely would be made permanent as part of that second phase DRR grant that we've now applied for. I apologize. This is a really confusing web of what we're doing and how we're getting funding for it. The project is currently being scoped out for rebuilding Claybanks RV Park with some modifications that you will see as part of the budget program because insurance isn't going to cover the full costs of the rebuild of that park, and we are excited to bring that forward as a budget project this year that could get a start this year. Yeah. Okay, with that, of course, the major win is people moving into homes. Thrilled with the work that the team's done. I'm so happy for those who have been struggling, bouncing from hotel to their friend's house to their parents' house, and it has just been a real slog for these families, and to see the smiles on their faces as they're moving into these homes has been pretty special for the team, and really grateful for your support in getting that initiative through. We are now through the permitting process on most of those homes, and so there's still a handful that we're going to have questions around, and we'll likely come forward to you for direction as to what we do once we have some more understanding of what the hiccups or the hang-ups are there. On to the Development Services Department. This month there were 18 building permits issued. There was also permits completed for the multi-unit apartments at 2230 Kilshanna Avenue and in relation to the A&W renovation. A business license was issued at 2701 Nicola Avenue. Team did a bunch of different training, particularly in around the BC STEP code. Are you guys familiar with this STEP code program? Oh boy, we're going to have a committee of the whole on this one. The 30-second version is that the province has mandated increasing steps, so it's called the STEP code, for energy efficiency of newly constructed units over the course of the next 8 years approximately. Is it 7 now? 2030. Oh my gosh. The time is sneaking up on me. I'm still adding in 2022 time. And so the third phase is not overly difficult to implement in that it's 20% in energy efficiency improvements versus the 2018 building code requirements that is going to be required by all municipalities to implement. That can largely be achieved through just tightening up existing building practices. The next phase is a 40%, and I don't remember which year that one comes in, but I want to say it's 2027. I'm going to look to Adam in case you know. Might be 2026. But next one is 40%, and then the final phase is 80%. Those are going to be challenging figures, and there's a whole bunch of steps and processes and supports for builders in place. Lots of discussion that's happening right now because there's this desire for energy efficiency, but we've also got a housing crisis where the costs of housing are really expensive. And so lots of tension between a lot of different communities. We can certainly talk about what the implementation of this program is going to be, but the short of it is that the city is going to need to bring in a bylaw to adopt, at the very least, step 3 building code here as soon as possible. So expect to hear more about BC step code shortly. We have received in February 1 development permit application and 1 subdivision application. For ongoing applications, what we still have outstanding, there are 17 development permits, 1 development variance permit, 1 discretionary use permit, 3 rezoning applications, 1 OCP amendment, and the big item here is there's 23 subdivisions right now. So plan for that. We've got consultant support to assist on subdivision side. But even that is not sufficient to chew through what we have. I will say that not all of these are waiting at the city. Lots of these, the city has issued what's called a PLR, or preliminary layout review, or preliminary layout approval letter, which is setting the requirements that the developer has to fulfill in order to get to the subdivision stage. And so in future weeks and months, we'll likely separate that out further for you, so you know which ones the city has kind of issued its PLR for and which ones are still waiting at the city for issuance of a PLR. I think that's an important distinction for understanding what step of a process we're at. But we know that's a big number, and a lot of development is represented by those subdivisions, and so it's important to us. We're thrilled that people want to do development, but it's important to us that we work to chew through that number. And so as we go through the months here, we want to see that number go down. So that's going to be a key metric for our team there. On the economic development side, we've had meetings with, it's called JEDI, Jobs Economic, I can't remember exactly, something in innovation, but with their staff regarding new businesses that are potentially interested in relocating to Merritt, as well as grant opportunities. We're also looking at the Forestry Impact Recovery Advisor. It's an opportunity to apply for a $75,000 grant to fund a staff role for support. That doesn't need to be a city application. It could be done with the support of the city for another organization potentially as well. So discussing options, wanted to make sure we take advantage of the opportunity there. The whole lot of community and internal collaboration and meetings with new businesses. There have been some, I'm always hesitant on the new business side to speak too publicly as to what it is. Obviously, they're excited about their initiatives, and until it's a done deal that they're coming or they've acquired property or whatever the scenario is, they want to know more. But I'm really, really happy to see the wave turning towards more industrial uses as opposed to just more smaller businesses, which are fantastic. We need those too, but you move the needle a little bit faster with some of the larger businesses coming in. It's some of them are in and around airport, some of them are in and around heavy industrial uses, and some are light industrial. So we're seeing a good mix of interest right now and are excited to see some of those come to fruition. So you will see a little bit more detail in the email that went out there. Lastly, on the finance side, the mystery question is, when the heck are we going to hire a director? I know that this is of great importance to the council. It's certainly of importance to me. As we're here in March 14th and we're having a budget discussion tomorrow, boy, I would love to have year-end financials to be able to back up those discussions, and we don't. And we know that that's a challenge and a problem, but we're looking forward to having that resolved. We've been interviewing for that position on a rolling basis. Initially, we started at a big intake. Now, as people are interested and have the ability and skill set to be successful in that role where we're running interviews. We currently have one candidate that we have a preliminary offer out to, and so we're all keeping our fingers crossed, and we'll update you if that leads to promised land of having a director of finance. In good news, we have hired a grant coordinator, and we'll send out an introduction here shortly in relation to our grant coordinator. They're going to be a remote worker, but they'll come in periodically to have in-person meetings and visits on that front. So very excited to have them on board, as grants are critically important to the overall health of our community, and they generate, it's a lot of administration the way the grant programs work right now. And so if you don't have adequate support for that, both on the finding side and the reporting side, you fall off and can get in the bad books of the funders pretty quickly. And so we need to be a leader on the grant side, and are happy that we filled that role again. With that, I'll take any questions you've got.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the report. Questions? Councillor Hogan.
So that brings me to say the word communication. So I feel like you guys as a staff have done a lot. So I'm glad that you included to answer two questions of people have approached me, asking me about both street repairs, asking me about the bridge. So I'm trying to figure it out a way, in an easy way for them to be able to get an easy answer, not to have to read a report or to have a phone call or an email. So some of those ideas is like a newsletter, virtual assistant in our website, an updated website. I just went to check right now the boat repairs, and it's not up to date right now with this new information. So I'm just trying to figure out a way so that we can keep everyone informed, whoever is interested in learning what is the status of these activities, and they can get that an easy answer.
I think that what is likely to happen, and don't hold us to it exactly, but as we refine how this process is going to work for reporting and we standardize that a little bit, what we will likely do is pull the highlights from that report out on a monthly basis, and communications will design some communications programs around those key items that the public wants to have information on. And so we'll be developing a little bit of a cycle on those ones that are most important for the members of the public. Like you said, we tend to know what they are because you hear them, we hear them, and we do want to make sure that we're answering the bell on that without making people dive through 50 pages of report. So we'll likely have the robust report available for people that want more information or want to dive through the details, but we'll pick out highlights through the communication program for making sure that we get things out as best as possible.
Thank you. I just want to point out the police report that was done for Minister Farnsworth and his crew. I want to say thank you to Ms. Mullins for designing that. It was very well done. I think it caught the minister and his crew a little off guard to have these numbers that absolutely could not be refuted. And it was very nice to have that information in the ability to send it to them and present it to them. So thank you very much for doing that. And thank the staff for getting those numbers, because I think that's what will put us over the top, because it was literally numbers you could not argue with. There was no gray area in there at all. And I think we caught them short, to be honest with you, because the look on their face was a little like, what's going on? So anyway, thank you very much for all of that. Any other questions? Well, thank you, CEO. I appreciate it. And with that, I will make a motion to adjourn. Thank you.